The testimony that you're going to hear on today's edition of Beat Diabetes is so powerful, so insightful, so instructive that every diabetic in the world ought to hear it, in my opinion. Of course, everybody will not hear it, but you can. Well, folks, we have a great treat for you today. I am talking to a man who lives in Florida, and of course, me living in Texas, there's a little bit of distance between us, but because of the power of phones and cameras and the internet, we're going to make it all work. Bill Berliant is his name. Bill, welcome to Beat Diabetes.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Well, it's a blessing to have you on our program. And I talked to you earlier. You shared some things in the comments, and then we talked a few days ago. And one of the things that impressed me and really impacted me from your testimony is just how much you have struggled with weight basically all your life, even as a child, and then eventually it led to diabetes. So why don't we start there, Bill? Tell us about the weight struggles you have had in your childhood and then on up through your years.
Well, I have always been overweight. I've always been fat. I cannot remember a single time in my life that I was not fat. I was fat at 5 years old. I can remember going into a restaurant. My parents would eat fried chicken or whatever they would eat, and they would get me a salad. So I even when I was in elementary school, I was overweight. I could never keep up with the other kids on the playground, so I just stood around and watched. I ran too slow to play kickball or softball or a tag or whatever. In junior high school, I was so big that I really had problems even sitting in the desk. The desk would pinch me to try to sit in it. In some classes, the teacher got me a chair so that I could be comfortable. I was overweight in high school. I was in the band, marching band, but they had to get a extra big uniform. And I believe, to give you some numbers, by the first grade, I was well over 100 pounds. I was about 180 pounds in junior high. And in high school, I was 250, 260, maybe 275.
Okay, and knowing how children can be, I am guessing you experienced some bullying and some mocking as a result of your weight. Is that right?
All the time. It never went away. And I'm Jewish, and I am familiar with the Old Testament. The Old Testament is my go-to book. And my favorite character is David. And I don't mean to turn this into a religious thing. This is
okay.
a diet thing, yeah. But the reason I like David so much, he wrote the Psalms, and I love the Psalms, was he slayed Goliath. So ever since I can remember, I have been fighting Goliath. Goliath is my weight, and Goliath is my diabetes. And I've had Goliath 24 hours a day. It didn't matter if I was in school, went out on a date, Goliath was right there. If I was driving a car, Goliath was right there. If I was marching in the band, I marched with Goliath. If I tried to climb steps, I was the last one up to those steps because Goliath was on me, his weight and his slowness. And so I have been fighting Goliath my entire life. I'm 76, and except for the last 3 years, I've been able to deal with Goliath and defeat him. For example, I went to college and everybody else is dating. I never dated. I didn't go to the senior prom in high school. Nobody would go out with me. And it got to the point of where I never asked a girl out because Goliath was here And the rejection, you get tired of rejection. So rather than face another rejection, I just didn't ask for a date. So I didn't date in college at all.
Yeah, but as we talked, you told me that somehow or another you ended up in the military. Now, how does a guy that overweight end up in the military? Tell us about that.
I'm a fairly patriotic person, but I joined the Army in order to defeat Goliath. And at that time, you could join the Army if you were 50 pounds overweight. So I went for my physical. I wasn't 50 pounds overweight. I was 60 pounds overweight. I was 10 pounds too heavy. The doctor fudged the paperwork. So I was supposed to be less than 283. I weighed 293, but he said I weighed 282, 1 pound under. So I got in. Now you had to lose 50 pounds in basic training to stay in. And I did lose 50 pounds. I did push-ups. I ran. I ate salad. I've eaten salad my entire life. But when other soldiers were eating in the mess hall, instead of me eating, I would eat for 5 minutes, and the drill sergeant would come and take me and say, "Run around the building." So they were eating lunch, and I was running around the building, and that's how I lost weight. In the Army, they don't have a name for it, but I was called every name in the book. I was called heavy drop and fat slob, and you name it, that I was called those things. Yeah, I stayed in the Army for 13 years, and I got my weight down within 8 or 10 pounds. And then the doctor would give me water pills. And I would take these water pills, and then I would get down underneath, just under the weight you needed for re-enlistment. But the last time I was about 50 pounds overweight, and the water pills wouldn't do any good. I couldn't lose 50 pounds. And so the Army put me out. I was in 13 years, but the Army put me out because I was overweight.
Okay, now while you're in the Army, you get physicals, you get checkups and so forth. You had no evidence of diabetes during those years, is that correct?
During the last hitch, that's about 1983 to 1987, the doctor said you're pre-diabetic, you're 6.0, but I didn't get any medication for that. And the doctor said, lose weight. You've got to lose weight to get rid of this diabetes. I was unable to lose weight.
So you get out of the Army, a lot of people would assume at that point you balloon up even more. Was that the case?
Yes, absolutely. And I went back and got my master's degree and went back into teaching. But every year of teaching, I gained more and more weight. So by the end of 18 years of teaching, I was 415 pounds. And I was so fat that if a kid dropped a pencil on the floor, I couldn't bend over and get it. I would hold a table. I would try to bend over, but I knew that if I wound up on the floor, I couldn't get up. So, and at the end of the day, teaching is a very vigorous job. So at the end of the day, after teaching all day, all I could do was sit in a chair and relax and try to get my breath. And about an hour after school, I had enough strength to get up and go out to the parking lot and get in my car and go home.
Wow. So you were in pretty bad shape, but tell us where diabetes fits in. At what point you're gaining weight constantly after getting out of the Army? You weren't very slim even while you were in the Army. At some point, you began to experience some symptoms and you find out you're diabetic. Tell us about that.
Right. I experienced a lot of symptoms when I was teaching school, to the point of I could no longer teach school. So I had to retire. I mean, I took myself, they didn't put me out like the Army, but I took myself out of teaching because I felt like I could not teach anymore. I had vision problems. My legs were big as tree trunks. My feet hurt all the time. My back hurt. My knees hurt terribly. My hips hurt. I was going to the doctor to see if I could have a hip operation or a knee operation to relieve the pain. And my doctor says, not hardly, because we can do the operation, but at 415 pounds, those pains will just come right back and you will not heal correctly. So finally, my A1C was up around 8 or 9, something like that. And I went to a lecture about Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. And I met the doctor, and we lined up a gastric bypass. And the gastric bypass will help me lose weight, and it will take the diabetes down. So in 2009, I had a gastric bypass operation. I lost about 100 pounds on that, and my A1C came down to around 7.5 or 7.6. So the doctor was happy about that, but you have to remember that even though my A1C was 7.6, I was on 4 medications, and I was gastric bypass. So what happened was I lost that weight, and then the weight started to creep back in. So 3 or 4 years after the gastric bypass, I had gained about half of my weight back. I thought at one point that I was going to lose my vision. I had no feeling in my feet or my legs, and I didn't know what to do. I'm eligible for VA medical care. So I went to the VA clinic one day, and the doctor said, you haven't got long, because I was getting kidney failure. My kidney function was down to 46, and my eyesight was terrible. I was having pains. I was having trouble breathing and everything. And he said that we just have to lose this weight. So they put me on. They sent me to a nutrition classes. The VA sent me to nutrition classes. Eat whole wheat bread. Eat brown rice, not white rice. Eat fruit and vegetables and all this stuff, And I didn't lose any weight. I went to all these nutrition classes. As a matter of fact, I gained about 25 pounds after the nutrition classes. And the doctor said, well, you're just not doing what you need to do. We are going to have to put you on insulin. So in addition to the 4 medications, at that time, when I went to that visit, my A1C was about 11. It was 11.1068, something like that. So I did get a meter, and I could take my blood sugar. I did that one time a day, and my blood sugar was around, my fasting glucose was around 270 in the morning. The doctor said, Bill, you're supposed to already be dead. So, but I wasn't dead. I'm not sure why, but I wasn't. So the last thing that the VA doctor told me was, you have to manage your diabetes. Okay, you have to manage. He's telling me I have to manage Goliath. I have to make friends with Goliath. I have to pat Goliath on the back and say, oh, you're not so bad. I've had a nice life, and I've enjoyed my relationship, Mr. Goliath, with you. So when I walked out the door, the doctor told me, you cannot beat diabetes. You have to manage it, lose a weight, but you cannot beat diabetes. So I've always been very stubborn, and I decided not to listen to the doctors anymore. I was kind of ready to die. I didn't know if I should go home and sit on the sofa and wait to die or what. So I came home and I got on my computer. I left the first 2 words out of the doctor's statement. You can't. I left that off. So I typed into Google, beat diabetes. Well, what should happen? But this preacher came on. Okay, Dennis Pollock. Who's Dennis Pollock? I don't know Dennis Pollock. Okay, so I decided I'd watch one of your videos. I was picturing in my mind telling the rabbi, I'm getting my nutrition information from a preacher. That would go over big.
Not only a preacher, but a Texas preacher at that.
Right, a Texas preacher, a cowboy preacher. Okay, so anyway, I watched your video. Your video was one on eating hamburgers. So you ate a hamburger, and then an hour after you ate it, you took your blood sugar, and the blood sugar hadn't hardly gone up at all. I thought, well, that's strange. He's eating food, but the blood sugar meter, Mike the meter, didn't go up. And then you ate a hamburger for dinner, and then it didn't go up. So I said, well, this doesn't sound kosher to me. It doesn't sound legit. So I tell you what, I'm going to go get some hamburger, and I'm going to prove that Dennis Pollock is wrong. And then I'm going to write to the preacher and say, no, this doesn't work. So it was 9:30 at night, something like that. Stores were open till 10 o'clock. I ran out and I got a big box of frozen hamburgers. My wife, Ann, thought, you've lost your mind. You're crazy. So the next morning, I took my blood sugar. It was about 271, 272. I had a hamburger for breakfast. Well, then I was hungry. So I had a hamburger at about 10:30, 11 o'clock. And then at 12 o'clock, I had another hamburger. And then for dinner, I had 2 hamburgers. So I ate 5 hamburgers that day.
Yeah, without any buns.
No bun. Yeah,
Right.
No bun. Just the, and these were giant hamburgers. I mean, these were not McDonald's hamburgers. They were about this thick, and they were big. I don't know how much, if they were 6 ounces or 8 ounces or what, but it was a huge hamburger. So I ate 5 of those. So the next morning I took my blood sugar. It was 240. I said, what in the world? I ate all this hamburger. I expected my blood sugar to go up, and my blood sugar went down 30 points in one day. So I said, I'm going to watch some more of his videos. So I spent the rest of the day watching your videos. I had a hamburger for breakfast. I had 2 hamburgers for lunch with cheese on them. The wrong kind of cheese. I didn't know. It wasn't the block cheese. It was the Kraft stuff in little plastic. It's factory cheese. I put about 5 slices of that. I had this much cheese on the hamburger. At night, I had 2 hamburgers with butter and cheese and bacon on it. So the next morning, I woke up, and my fasting glucose was about 210. In 2 days of stuffing myself with hamburgers and bacon and butter, my A1C had gone down about 70 points. So I said, this is impossible, but I don't care. Whatever it takes to defeat Goliath, if I had to march down Main Street playing the trombone with one hand and eating a hamburger with another, I would do it. I didn't care what I had to do to defeat Goliath. I was going to do it. So I ate hamburger for the 3rd day, and my fasting glucose after that day was about 195. So it dropped like a rock. And not only that, but I was dizzy. Things were spinning around. I checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure was 100/55. But I was taking 3 blood pressure meds. So I decided to medicate myself. Please, the people that are watching this, don't do this. Don't do what I did. Follow the advice of your doctor, always. But I didn't do that. So I decided to drop 2 of the medications. My blood pressure came back up to normal. It came up to like 105/62 or something like that. And then I decided to stop a couple of medications for diabetes medications. I never, they called me from the drugstore and said, your insulin is ready. Doctor called in a prescription for insulin. I told the druggist, I'm not taking it. Go ahead and put it back. Go ahead and put it back on the shelf. I don't want it. So after that, I watched your videos and I did the things that you do. And my blood sugar continued to come down gradually until I was in this, after about 3 years. It took me a long time. But after 3 years, I was in the 6 club.
Praise God.
Thank God. And then this spring, in February, you had this 2022 challenge thing. Okay, get yourself into the 5s. I had been trying to get into the 5s for about a year, maybe 6 months. I was stuck in the 6s. So I said, well, okay, I'm gonna really kick Goliath's butt this time. So I joined, and I got it down into the 5s. And my last A1C was a 5.7.
Now, are you taking any medication with this?
I'm taking 0 medication. I was taking, up to 2 years ago, I was taking metformin, just metformin. I was taking 4 a day. That's the maximum dose. That's 2,000 milligrams of metformin. Then I cut it back to 3, then 2, then 1. But when I joined this challenge, I stopped that. So I'm not taking any metformin.
And with no meds at all, just taking some minerals and vitamins. Your last A1C, tell us again what it was?
5.7. Now I'm going to be checked in another month. It'll be lower than that. Because yesterday morning, my morning fasting glucose was 93, and this morning it was 95.
Wow.
My legs that were this big, I used to have to wear a special hose with 60 pounds of pressure. I don't wear that anymore. My legs are normal size. My legs are not swollen up. My feet are not swollen up. I do have a little peripheral neuropathy that's left. My kidney function has come up 12 points. It's come from 46 to 58. When I go to the doctor, I go to the nephrologist. And the nephrologist says, nephrologist said, how did you do this? And I said, well, I ate a lot of bacon and I ate a lot of beef. And the nephrologist says, you're going to kill your kidney. And then they look at the chart and my kidneys have improved. So the nephrologist said, keep doing what you're doing. So I had some cataracts and I went to the eye doctor and the eye doctor said, your cataracts have diminished. What are you doing? I said, I'm eating bacon. So she knows that Jewish people don't eat bacon, but I'm not that religious. So I don't care. If I want bacon, I'm eating bacon. It's my favorite food. So the eye doctor said, well, keep doing what you're doing.
Now, you told me when we talked earlier, when you were at your worst, you could hardly stand up for more than a minute. You could hardly walk across a room, right? How has that been for you?
That's correct. When I was teaching school, I sat in a chair because if I stood up, my legs hurt so much I couldn't even think. So I sat in a chair and taught the kids, clap, half note, whole note, all that stuff. But now, for example, I ride my bicycle. I'm 76 years old. I ride my bicycle 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Sometimes I go 8 to 10 miles on my bicycle. I was in a bicycle-thon last year, and my longest ride was 42 miles. So I rode my bicycle 42 miles. I was pretty tired, but I'm okay. I've got a stationary indoor bicycle. I've got a regular bicycle, and I do that because my knees. After so many years, my knees aren't very good, but they don't hurt when I ride a bicycle. And I climb stairs. I'm not out of breath. When I was big, when I was accompanied by Goliath, I used to have to take one step and rest, and then take another step and rest, and take another step and rest. And now I just walk right up the steps. I'm not even breathing hard.
How much weight have you lost total?
Well, the total amount of weight that I've lost since I was at my heaviest now, 210 pounds.
210. Wow.
But I've got about another 25 that I want to lose. I'm going to lose another 20 to 25 pounds. I want to get down to 175, 180, something like that.
You know, the thing that I find amazing, you've described that so much of your life as you have struggled with the Goliath of being overweight and all that. You tried, but you didn't have much success. It's like somehow you didn't quite have the motivation to really curb your appetite. But now, as I'm listening to you, it's like you are loaded with motivation. I mean, it's up to the brim with you. How did you get all this motivation all of a sudden?
This sounds crazy, but I get motivation from Mike the Meter. When I do my fasting glucose in the morning, and I've been down below 90 a couple of times, and it says my fasting glucose, the meter says 88. Yay! So yeah. And when I eat a meal, let's say I'm trying to think of what we had last night. I had meatloaf. But doesn't have any starch or bread. There's no bread in it. But I had meatloaf and green beans, So before the meatloaf and green beans, my glucose was 97. After the meatloaf and green bean, my glucose is 90. An hour later, it's 99. It went up 2 points. Yeah!
Well, that's what I call a Mike-approved meal. And the more of those you find, it's like they become your friends, they become your tools in your toolbox. And after a while, you start saying to yourself, man, I can do this. I can do this. I get the feeling that's exactly how you feel right now.
Absolutely. And it's never a problem eating. I had the worst eating disorder ever. I was hungry all the time. I only thought about food. That's, what am I going to have for my next meal? I'm so hungry. Now I could care less. I don't eat breakfast. I skip breakfast. Since February, I've been skipping breakfast. You have these menus. And so I used the menu for the first month, for the month of February. After that, I didn't need to use the menu. I took the training wheels off, and I knew what I was supposed to eat. I just skipped breakfast. No in-between meal snacks, no snacks at night, and the numbers are crazy low.